So have you decided if you're gonna be buying a used or new Tesla?
I don't want to be buying someone's used goods. I want to buy it
Brand new, straight off the factory line, so that I know nobody else has owned and touched this car except for me. Wise choice, sir. That's a very smart decision. Just make sure to bring your delivery day checklist with you.
Wait, the what?
Oh yeah, no, within the first 24 hours of delivery, you're gonna want to make sure you keep track of any and all defects, otherwise Tesla service is gonna charge you for fixing them in the future.
Well, I was just hoping that because it's new, it's...
Especially check for any kind of powered liftgate rubbing against those panels. You'll see noticeable gaps in as well as window protrusions on either side. You definitely want to get those pictures documented. I went to the service center 4 times after taking delivery of my car. It's also worth mentioning that sometimes Model Ys, because of the way the windshield is installed, is known for cracking upon delivery, so you might want to get that checked out.
Also,
things that could, trace dirt in the car, staining the interior, and often leaving glue stains on the headpiece.
Alright, I gotta remember all this, and
definitely roll your windows up and down, because sometimes those motors are broken and they forget to fix them, so...
Okay, you know what? How bad is used at this point?
The battery pack, the range might... just buy new, please. So the age-old expression always goes, you lose half of the car's value once you drive it off the dealer lot, right? Well, with Teslas, it's definitely a bit different, and this was a question that I kept getting, and I just kept reminding everybody that I've only bought one Tesla in my life, and that one happened to be new, because at the time we ordered our car, buying it new was actually cheaper than buying it used, because there was such an incredibly long wait time. So because of that, I don't have like a buying used experience to document versus buying new. I encourage you guys to check out Out of Spec Dave's videos, because that guy buys a new Tesla pretty much every week, sometimes used, sometimes new, so he probably has a lot more experience in whether or not you should consider going used. But I thought for this video I would just at least weigh out what I know and am aware of, because I was also playing that game of should you go used or should you go new with Teslas, because Teslas inherently are really fun cars to own because they don't have that much maintenance in the first place, which actually makes them a lot more desirable to buy used than any old gas car. Knowing that there's no transmission, there's no head gaskets, there's no oil changes, and frankly, for most people, there's barely any brake pad service to worry about either. So buying a used Tesla with some miles on it, pretty much your biggest concern is just like, have the tires been replaced? Because if you buy a used Tesla, but it's got like 40,000-50,000 miles on the tires, it might seem cheaper in inventory, but you'll realize, oh, I gotta spend $2 to $4 grand on tires once I get this thing, because electric vehicles, being heavier, tend to wear out tires faster. So that's something probably to look out for that you likely wouldn't have to look out for that much when buying a new Tesla. But I think a lot of the motivation people have for buying a Tesla new is simply the idea that it's my car and no one else's. I don't have to worry about the title transfers from somebody else or the account management or any of that stuff. This is my car and mine alone. And I'll admit, yeah, it is just kind of fun to buy a brand new car. Everybody talks about that new car smell and going to the delivery center knowing, yes, this car was made specifically for me, and that is great. I understand the hype surrounding that. Dare I say, everybody in their life should do it at least once. You know, don't do it right out of high school per se. I don't think that's a great financial move, but maybe before you die, everybody should buy at least a new car once. But after that one time, or at least some point in your life, I think you start to realize that you drive it around and it gathers imperfections. Even when you wrap it, even with PPF, it gets dirty, or it gets dented, or it gets scratches, or the windshield cracks. And then you just start to look at it as, this is the car, it was cool, and it is still something you can appreciate, but the sooner you get past the there's gonna be imperfection stage, I think the more you'll end up actually appreciating and just embracing the current state of, this is my car. No, it is not perfect, but it's comfortable, it's functional, and it gets me where I need to go. And like I said in the skit, especially with the case of Teslas, they are not known for perfect vehicles upon delivery. My friend Randy on the Talos of EV podcast took delivery of a Model Y Performance lately, and yeah, still spending like over 50 grand on a vehicle. He had a cracked windshield upon delivery. Now, yes, he reported that right away, and Tesla's replacing the windshield for free, and I had cosmetic issues with my car as well. There were some panel gaps, there were some window protrusions, and I had my headrest stitching come loose after a few months, and they did replace that under warranty. But I feel like all of those quality control issues and all of those delivery day checklists kind of take away, I think, a lot of the benefits and advantages to buying a new car in the first place, because people are afraid, well, what did the last last buyer do to it? What if the last buyer screwed up the car and is hiding something I don't know about? I will at least admit it feels a bit harder to hide things from people when you're selling them an electric car, because you can charge it up to full and see what the targeted 100% range number is. And truthfully, most people that are driving around even older Teslas are seeing pretty minimal range loss. So that's absolutely something to look for when you're considering a used vehicle, asking them why they're selling it, and of course if it was in any wrecks and that kind of thing. But the great thing about Teslas is right there in the display, you can tap the car icon on the bottom and go down to the software section and click view additional vehicle information, and it'll basically tell you everything. Of course, you can always just open the door and see when the car was built to make sure the seller's not lying, and on that screen it'll tell you if the car has full self-driving. And the other complicated thing when buying used Teslas is Tesla makes a lot of changes in between model years. It's not like the 2021 Model 3 has a certain set of features and the 2022 Model 3 has a different set of features. No, there's some overlap. So the year doesn't say everything, but thankfully by clicking view additional vehicle information, it'll actually tell you if the high voltage battery pack is lithium iron phosphate, which means the cycle life is higher and you can charge it to 100% every day. Whereas if it's a nickel based battery pack, that's when you're just charging it to 80% every day and the degradation might be a bit more noticeable. But still, in my opinion, there's not really any Teslas on the road that are too old to the point that the battery pack has deteriorated to unusable. Maybe we're approaching that with some of the 2015 and earlier Model S's, but I still have multiple family members driving around 2015 Model S's, and yeah, they don't go as far as they used to, but they still have access to the supercharger network. And I think the biggest issue with those older Model S's were some of the early Tesla powertrains that they put in those first year Model S's that were known for going out prematurely, so maybe that's a bit too old to consider buying. And they also have more dated MCUs. That's something to worry about with used Teslas. In my opinion, I'm not too concerned about the battery pack in the range, because Tesla data is showing fairly little range loss, like 10 to 12% after hundreds of thousands of miles, and most people aren't selling Teslas with that many miles on them. But I'd be more concerned about other things like interior features, like the connectivity of the car. Like Teslas before, I think 2021, had still Intel Atom processors, and that just meant the display was a lot slower and less responsive. So opening up the browser, Tesla Theater mode was a bit more laggy. The visualization might not always look so smooth. It still functionally works, but it might not age as well if you're making a long-term purchase. And the other change that you might want to look out for is the 12-volt batteries. Yes, electric vehicles don't just have one big battery pack powering everything. They have a smaller battery pack, just like a regular gas car does, for powering all of the smaller electronics. For, I believe, 2020 Model 3s and earlier, they had lead-acid 12-volt batteries, which are known for going out after 4 to 5 years, and then you got to get them replaced. Whereas newer Teslas, like 2021 and over, have lithium-ion 12-volt batteries, which are supposedly much higher cycle life than lead-acid and should last the life of the car. So little things like that may stack up. Like all Model Ys and Model 3s from 2020 and later, they have wireless charging built in, whereas the earlier Model 3s, you had to get an accessory to get those wireless chargers working, and sometimes those wireless chargers are not that optimized. My friend Randy got a Nomad wireless charger for his 2019 Model 3, and that ended up shutting off his center display from time to time. Not the end of the world. You can just hold down both the scroll wheels to hard reset the computer. The car will keep driving and keep functioning even if the display shuts off. But essentially, when you're buying used Teslas from earlier days, I think there tend to be some manufacturing mistakes that Tesla has since fixed that you might have to put up with those older cars. But I don't really think any of them are complete deal breakers, especially these days when you can find such incredible deals on used Teslas. The resale value holds up better than most gas cars, but it still definitely saves you thousands of dollars by not buying new. But yeah, a lot of things I would say aren't that different when shopping for a used Tesla. Still, you want to test drive it. Still, you want to ask the seller questions about it, and you want to look around for defects in the interior, look for defects in the glass. Not necessarily because that's a deal breaker, but it might help you negotiate a better price given the current state of the vehicle. Unless, of course, you're buying a used Tesla from Tesla themselves, which I think comes with its own separate list of pros and cons. Like, you get a limited vehicle warranty when buying a used vehicle from Tesla, and a lot of the times Tesla, to try to incentivize people to buy a used car, will throw in enhanced autopilot or full self-driving. So if you're buying a Tesla not necessarily because you want the most luxurious interior or the most flawless build, but you're instead interested because you want to test out all those self-driving features, buying used tends to be, in my opinion, like the cheapest way to do that. And no, as far as I'm aware, you can't just ask Tesla, can you remove FSD and deduct $15,000 from the price of the car? No, that's not how it works. And another piece of confusion that I still see a lot of people not understand, if you're buying a used Tesla from an individual seller and it has full self-driving with the car, yes, you still do get to keep full self-driving with that car. The only time where Tesla has been known to deactivate full self-driving after a third party sells it is when it's sold off at auctions. So if you're buying it through an auction, or maybe if you're buying it through a dealer, I would want to make sure by going into vehicle additional information on the Tesla display that it says full self-driving capability there. Or if it's an older model S or X, you can check to see if it has lifetime premium connectivity. That's gonna be your best friend because that tells you all the truth about the car, the mileage and everything. Don't just trust the listing solely based on what the dealer may be selling it for. And if you're buying it from auction, don't trust them saying that it has full self-driving attached. But if it's just a guy on Facebook or whatever selling his Tesla and he says it has full self-driving, you should be able to keep that. At least that's how Tesla wants it to be. But again, make sure that it has it on the internal display. But another little party trick that I should remind you guys, if you're not considering buying used and you're too scared about the process of having to transfer over the titles and let Tesla know that, yeah, I want to transfer the account owner to this phone instead of this previous owner, Tesla actually has a lot of Model 3s and Ys and S's and X's, all of them are available in inventory new, pretty much every trim you can imagine. In fact, Tesla will offer you a discount on the vehicle if you don't order it through the configurator, which is, I think, a great perk. So for instance, if you go to view inventory and buy a Model 3 that way, you'll actually get a $500 discount on the vehicle compared to buying it straight from the configurator because you're trying to buy a custom build. But they have so many trims and options in inventory already. I think what you want is probably already there. With the Model Y, I tend to see $250 discounts, so not as good from buying through inventory. But hey, $250, that covers the price of the mobile connector, which most of you are probably gonna need to charge this car. Sorry, they don't include that with the vehicle purchase anymore, so that's just something you gotta be aware of. And if you don't want to get the mobile connector and you're just gonna rely on third-party charging systems or Tesla supercharging, that's when you want to make sure you use a referral code of some kind. So of course, I got one in the description or in the about section. Doesn't have to be my code. You could use someone else's if you want to support them. But please just be aware that you can save yourself anywhere from 30 to 60 bucks just by using a referral code, and then you can redeem your Tesla credits on 500 miles worth of supercharging, which these days supercharging is getting pretty freaking expensive. So that's why I just want to remind everyone, please use a referral code. And yes, you can still qualify for that 1,500 Tesla credit referral if you buy a new Tesla through existing inventory. But sadly, I'm afraid to report, if you buy a used Tesla, even through Tesla's website, they don't offer you any referral credits. So if you're looking for anything to push you towards buying new, that might be a decent reason to. But I also just think this is a good opportunity to remind people that Tesla is constantly improving their cars, yes, but they're also making them worse in some ways. Like, for example, if you buy a used Tesla that was made before October of 2022, you still have ultrasonic sensors, which means park assist works a lot more reliably and consistently, at least right now. After October of 2022, they removed the ultrasonic sensors, which means as of right now, even if it has full self-driving, you don't get auto park, you don't get summon, you don't get smart summon, and park assist is kind of in a guessing game right now. It's not super reliable. My friend Randy says half the time it just gives up and it doesn't give you those little parking lines around the car, so you just gotta rely on the cameras. And if you're buying a Tesla used, you're probably pretty confident that it doesn't have like any massive defects. There's been some horror stories of people buying a brand new Tesla and then it just like shuts off a few miles from the factory and then it goes into service centers and is waiting around for weeks at a time. At least if you're buying it used from an independent seller, you know that it's at least capable of working, and hopefully they let you take it on a test drive and you can tell if there's any wind noise inside the cabin. Hopefully the last owner actually got most of that service stuff done with, and if there isn't something working, they have to report it. Whereas a lot of the time, if you're buying a brand new Tesla, you can take delivery and find wind noise issues, road noise problems, panel gaps, or things that aren't functional, and you, because you're the first owner, have to report all that and take it driving back and forth to service centers all the time. So in my opinion, there's really not a wrong way to do it. I think there's advantages and disadvantages whether you go used or new, but in my personal opinion, because this is such a toss-up depending on, hey, you get some premium hardware, and if you're buying from an independent seller, they'll probably include the mobile connector, whereas you're buying from Tesla, you gotta buy that separately. In my opinion, I would just fall back towards whatever's cheaper. Like if I was in the market today, I would love to try to get by with like a used standard range Model 3 that's like $30,000. I've seen those available in Tesla's website, and sometimes they throw in enhanced autopilot and that kind of stuff, which is cool. You'd still get the ultrasonic sensors, and I'd miss out on the heated steering wheel, which they included in 2021, or the chrome delete on the trim, or the powered frunk. But hey, if I save like $10,000, that's a pretty decent compromise. Like, you can add back the chrome delete, or you can add back the powered trunk if you want to. There's aftermarket ways to add that. And oh yeah, of course, I should also mention the tax credit. Electric vehicles that you buy used, most of them are probably not going to qualify. The IRS has a pretty strict guideline on used EVs having to cost, I think, below like $25,000 or $30,000 to just get like a $4,000 federal tax credit. Whereas if you're buying a new Tesla, like a Model Y, in the United States, all of those qualify for a $7,500 federal tax credit. But again, that's not a point of sale. That's a deduction on your next year's tax return. And the Model 3 rear-wheel drive and long-range options only qualify for half of that tax credit, which is $3,750. But hey, at least those are more guaranteed than a lot of used Teslas, which probably won't qualify for the used EV tax credit. So that might bring the pricing a little bit closer together for you if you're a little paranoid of buying older Teslas. But I could basically go on forever telling you all the differences between the model years, and the truth is, all these changes are just going to keep coming. So within a couple months, Tesla unveils Project Highland. Now this video is all dated too, but what do you guys think? Have you bought Teslas used or new? Feel free to let this be a video in a comment section full of information for potential buyers out there, because I get this question a lot. But please just remember, if you do choose to buy new, you can get a $250 to $500 discount by buying from inventory, and you can get 500 miles of free supercharging by using a referral code. So please make sure you do that before you place your order. And thank you to everybody supporting this channel directly. It seriously helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. Thanks again. Have an excellent rest of your day.